Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are talking about how you can make friends while traveling solo. One of the top reasons I hear from people who really want to take a solo trip but just haven't had the courage to take the plunge is that they're afraid that they're not going to meet anyone along the way and they're going to be doing every single activity, eating every single meal completely alone. And I totally understand that fear. So if that is you, this video is perfect for you. I am here to remind you that it is 2022 and we are bouncing back from this pandemic. Travel is back, borders are open, and there are more ways than ever before for you to make friends and meet people while traveling alone. In this video, I'm sharing my top 5 practical tips that you can use to almost guarantee that you'll make friends on your next solo adventure. I love talking about solo travel. I am planning much more content on this topic, and I want to talk about things like how I plan my solo trips, the biggest mistakes that I've made while solo traveling, and a lot more. So if you don't want to miss out on these great tips, definitely subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get alerted of my future posts. If you have any questions about solo travel, definitely leave me some comments below and I can't wait to respond to you. But enough of the intro. I'm really excited to get into this topic, so let's jump right into it. So my tip number 1 for making friends while traveling solo is to stay in a hostel. And I already know what you're thinking. If you have done any research on this topic whatsoever, this is probably the first thing that came up. And that's because it really is the easiest way to make friends while traveling alone. So if you've heard this before and you just feel like hostels aren't really your thing, bear with me, don't turn off this video. I'm going to explain how to reap some of the benefits of staying in a hostel without actually staying in one. So please keep watching. But first, for the people who are unfamiliar with hostels, these are really inexpensive accommodations and places where a lot of backpackers stay, a lot of solo travelers stay to save money and also, of course, to meet other people who are traveling. In a hostel, you're often sleeping in a dorm room full of bunk beds. A dorm can literally have tens and tens of beds in it and can accommodate a huge number of guests all at the same time. Beyond the dorm rooms, there's often a kitchen with free breakfast, a common living area, a pool if you're lucky, some shared restrooms, possibly game rooms. I mean, they could really have any number of amenities. And of course, it's all of these great communal spaces that make hostels a wonderful and easy place to make friends. As soon as you walk into your dorm room, there's a whole group of people to introduce yourself to and hang out with during your trip. As I said before, a lot of these folks will likely be solo travelers also, which makes it even easier to ask what they're doing the next day and see if you can maybe tag along, or even to invite them to the plans that you have. I've done this so many times and ended up going to dinner or going to a museum or just sightseeing around the city with people that I met in my hostel that same day. And in addition to all the communal spaces, hostels will often host social events like a bar hop, trivia night, a pool party, and so much more. So of course, these are really great opportunities to meet other travelers also. And like I said earlier, if hostels aren't your thing, I totally get it. It can be a little stressful sharing a room with dozens of strangers, and also maybe you don't want to share a bathroom with a ton of people. If that's the case, then I would suggest doing one of two things. The first option is to stay in a hostel, but find one that offers private rooms and private bathrooms. So this would essentially be like having a hotel room, but you also have access to all of the communal spaces, all of the social events, everything else that the hostel has to offer, but you don't have to worry about sharing your personal space with anyone. The second option is to pay a little bit more money and stay in a proper hotel, but this is very important, stay in a hotel that is right next to all of the best hostels in the area. This way you can participate in a lot of the public events that the hostels host, They're not always open to the public, but sometimes they are if you buy a ticket or reserve your spot. And so if you're staying close by to a hostel, you can easily find out about those events. You're more likely to go to them, and you'll also be in a very touristy, solo travel-y area, meaning that when you walk outside to go to the coffee shop across the street, you're likely going to bump into people who are staying at some of these nice hostels, and you can easily meet them and start a conversation. And the topic of joining social events actually takes us to tip number 2, which is to join group touristy activities. A really great and free group activity that I always try to take advantage of is a walking tour of the city. Walking tours are so great because you not only learn so much about the city, but you're also going to meet other people who just arrived, and you can also talk to the tour guide to get their advice on where people hang out, what touristy things you can do to meet other people. I really can't emphasize walking tours enough. They're so much fun and they're easy to find out about. You can just Google free walking tour and then the name of the city that you're in. To find other fun social activities like bar crawls or boat tours, you can use TripAdvisor. And that's what I did in Panama City just a few years ago. And I made a ton of friends really quickly, and people that I've kept in touch with and ended up hanging out with again back in the US. So TripAdvisor, Eventbrite, Meetup, these are all great websites to go to find people to hang out with when you are traveling alone. By the way, if you are getting value out of this video, please hit that thumbs up button so YouTube will recommend it to other viewers and they can benefit from tips like these. Alright, so tip number 3. I don't need to remind you again that it is 2022 and meeting people online is totally normal. So many single people use apps like Hinge, Bumble, Tinder to meet people, and also I just made a video about how more and more folks are using Bumble BFF to make friends. So if you would use these apps in your own city to meet new people and make friends, why wouldn't you use them while you're traveling? These apps are a great way to meet locals and even other tourists who are just looking for someone to hang out with for a day, and obviously exercise the same precautions, use the same discretion that you would use when meeting up with a stranger from the internet anywhere. But overall, I've had a lot of success with using these apps on my solo trips. And maybe you already do this, which is great. I know this is not a revolutionary idea, but I do have a pro tip for you that it seems like no one else really does, and that would be to change your location on the app in advance of actually going to your destination. Not every app allows you to do this, but for the ones that do, like Hinge, you can easily change your location to the place that you're heading maybe a few weeks in advance, and that way you really increase your chances of finding someone to meet up with when you're actually in the city. And it feels more comfortable, at least for me, because I have more time to have conversations with them before deciding to just go and meet them in person. I love doing this, and I honestly do this all the time. And I actually did this in Houston in 2020. I set my location to Houston a few weeks in advance and ended up making dinner plans with someone for the evening that I got into town. So I landed at the airport, dropped my bags off at the Airbnb, showered, changed, and then headed right into downtown to grab dinner with someone, all without missing a beat. Even with social apps like Hinge and Bumble, you won't be eating every single meal with another person. And this brings us to tip number 4, which is when you go out to eat by yourself, be sure to sit at the bar. People who sit at the bar are normally more willing to have a conversation because you're sitting right next to each other and you're technically at the same table. This is also where a lot of other solo diners, solo travelers will be eating. And starting a conversation with someone sitting next to you is so easy. One of my go-to lines is just asking them what they ordered or what they're drinking or if they've been here before. And this is such an easy way to get the conversation rolling. Seriously, when I think about how many times I've met people at the bar, it's honestly just too many times to count. And starting a conversation with a stranger at the bar really takes us right into our 5th and final tip, which is to start a conversation with any other travelers that you see. When I come across another solo traveler, maybe someone else on that walking tour that I mentioned, what I normally do to get the conversation going is to offer to take their picture. When you're solo traveling, and this is something I can talk about in another video, but one of the biggest challenges that I have is getting good photos. And so when you offer to take someone else's photo, you're relieving some of their stress, and also it's a really great entryway into a conversation. And honestly, this same tactic can be applied to meeting people who are on a group trip together. Offering to take a photo of the group is a really great way to kind of introduce yourself and start meeting them. Although it can be intimidating to try to approach a group of travelers, it's important to remember that you really just need to introduce yourself to one of them, and then they will introduce you to the rest of the group. In my experience, group travelers are very excited to meet solo travelers, and they will often just instinctively invite you to join whatever activity they have for that day because they know that you probably want to hang out with folks. I mentioned earlier that I did a boat tour when I was in Panama City. And on the boat, I actually met a group of women who were celebrating one of their birthday. And so I hung out with them for the day, and then they invited me to the birthday dinner later that evening. I had so much fun, and I ended up hanging out with the birthday girl a year later when we were both living in California. We went to Yosemite for the day, and all of that is really because I started talking to one of the friends on the group trip who then introduced me to everyone else. So in conclusion, there are so many ways for you to meet people and make friends as a solo traveler. You just have to be willing to go out, do an activity, say hi to someone, and have a conversation. Let me know in the comments which of these 5 tactics you are going to try on your next solo adventure. If you have questions or suggestions for other video topics that you'd be interested in, please leave a comment below, and I would love to get back to you. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye!